Welcome to Driven to Lead. I'm your host, Wayne Brandon. In this series, we explore the real world stories of key executives to find the leadership lessons that help move us all forward. If you like these conversations, we'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe and like button. It'll help us out a lot. But now we got another great program for you today, so let's make it happen. Very happy that we have Sebastian Di Grande with us today, CEO of PCX Markets. Sebastian has over 35 years of global experience building and leading teams to deliver impact at scale, 20 years at BCG in San Francisco, London, and Sydney, leading technology practices. He's helped launch BCG Digital Ventures, followed by several years leading a $5+ billion digital and international business at Gap. He's passionate about sustainability, and he's in a business right now that focuses heavily on plastics. We're looking forward to learning more about it. Sebastian, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's really great. And one of the things I really enjoy about this program is we have a chance to talk to executives from various walks of life and various sectors. And PCX is really unique. Would you start out by telling us a little bit about it, please?
Yeah, I might want to even give a little bit of the history of PCX, but at its core, I'll just start with the core mission of PCX. PCX has our stated mission is to ensure a future where no plastic waste enters nature, which is really at its core what drew me to it, and the leadership role that I now have. The history of PCX is that it was founded at the epicenter of the plastic waste crisis in the Philippines by a woman named Nanette Medved Poe, who is an amazing person. She's I describe her as a serial social entrepreneur. She has a number of nonprofits she started over the years in the Philippines. She focused on education, other things, but environment was near and dear to her heart. And it was founded back in 2019. And after 2, 3 years of what I would describe as a proof of concept of engaging corporate players to support and fund the diversion of plastic waste from nature, and I can describe that in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
She was faced with an opportunity and a challenge, which is, wow, this is working at small scale in the Philippines. How do I scale the impact globally? And she was being encouraged by a number of people, investors, governments, et cetera, to think about launching something bigger. And I got connected to her through mutual investor connection, et cetera. We got to talking more almost in an advisory capacity. And I
Mm-hmm.
got so inspired by the mission and what she had built.
Yeah.
And I gave my thoughts on what it would take to do this. And long story short, I signed on to partner with her as the CEO, and we launched PCX Markets. So what is it? It's now 4+ years on. We really are what we describe as a plastic responsibility platform. Now, that's a lot of words, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
describe what that really
Yeah, what does
means
that mean? Yeah.
in practice.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is we have a massive plastic waste crisis. And just to give some context, we have produced probably by now, 10 billion tons of plastic on this earth since it was industrialized about 90, 100 years ago. And it's growing exponentially. So every year we are producing more than the year before. It
Mm-hmm.
is an amazing material. I am not one of these people. I'm a very pragmatic person. There's a reason we produce so much. It serves tremendous service to our livelihoods,
Mm-hmm.
to health and wellness, to food security. It's light, it's long lasting, it's secure. But we have never built an infrastructure to manage it responsibly. And
Mm-hmm.
so less than 10%, probably 8% of it gets recycled, less than half of it gets responsibly managed on the back end, and we have not developed any alternatives for most of the applications. So PCX was founded to start to address this crisis. And it is a multifaceted one, from upstream production to downstream waste management. And what we offer is really three pillars to our offering that has evolved over time. We have two that are impact oriented. One is our plastic recovery marketplace, which is really plastic credits. Most people would be familiar with carbon credits, both the good and the bad and the
Mm-hmm.
controversy around them. But plastic credits, more tangible, more measurable, It's not meant to be a solution in and of itself, but we're seeing it in practice. It brings a market-based mechanism to have corporations and other producers take responsibility for the plastic waste they produce, fund the collection and responsible processing of that plastic waste on the back end, and ultimately fund infrastructure that's badly needed, which I can talk about later. So that's one pillar. We have diverted over 500 million tons of plastic from nature in our 5, 6 years of existence. Still a drop in the bucket to the billions,
Hmm.
but more than pretty much anybody else I've ever heard of, right? We are
Yeah.
really out ahead of the game on that one. Related to that, the other impact pillar is access to recycled materials, or what we call PCR. A lot of companies are really struggling, even when they want to use recycled materials, so not buying virgin plastic, they are really struggling to find it at scale and in a cost-effective and consistent and high-quality manner. Because we work with 50 projects in 16 countries that are doing plastic waste collection and processing, and they're all doing it on a global standard with certification and transparency and auditing, we can
Hmm.
offer access to that material in a verified way. And so that's our second pillar. The
Hmm.
third, which is something we really started working on in the last couple of years off the back of our policy experience, and we'll talk about the problems in this space later, but we've done a lot of work in policy, global, national, and local. And you're seeing tremendous amount of policy being rolled out, but in a highly fragmented way. So we offer what we call a responsibility intelligence platform, which again, lots of words. It is a combination of policy expertise, analytical resources, and a software platform that allows you to have a scalable solution to meeting compliance for regulations with your packaging and plastic all over the world. Again, with an aim towards scalable solutions. This is my background, right? Technology,
Hmm.
strategy, business
Hmm.
strategy, doing things in a market efficient, scalable manner. And that's the third pillar of what we now offer here at
Yeah,
PCX.
that's great. Man, that's really impressive that you're attempting to do that. You kind of shocked me with one of the numbers you shared there, Sebastian. Only 8 to 10% of plastics get recycled. I mean, that
Yeah.
I thought would be well over 50%. And that, how is that possible? I mean, we take the yellow bins to the curb every day, every week.
Yeah, so it's a combination of things. I mean, you have to start with first and foremost, most plastic isn't recyclable.
Okay.
So most people think about plastic recycling and they think about water bottles, right? Which,
Hmm.
by the way,
Yeah.
are one of the most avoidable forms of plastic usage, just
Hmm.
to be clear.
Yeah.
But that rigid PET, as we call it, is one of the most recyclable materials, but it itself, all the recyclable plastics probably only make up about 25 to 30% of all plastics produced.
Wow.
So
Okay. That's
you have
interesting.
lightweight films, soft plastic, flexible film. You've got
Hmm.
all kinds of other plastics that are and categories that are not recyclable at all, at least in today's technology. There are some technologies called chemical recycling. They've had a setback recently because of the byproducts of that.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
mechanical recycling, and then I'm going to add layers to the challenge.
Hmm.
Mechanical recycling is only addressable to about, call it 25, 30% of plastics. Then you layer on top of that the molecule itself can only be mechanically recycled 3 to 5 times before it can't be recycled anymore. So by definition, even if you were perfect at recycling, even then, much of it would all end up as waste eventually,
So is
right?
this like a molecular fatigue or something that happens, or
Correct.
okay.
Correct. They can no longer grind it down, recombine it, and put it back through the process of molding and forging of the
Hmm.
whatever the material is that they're creating or the packaging.
Hmm.
And then the last piece, and maybe in many ways the most near and dear to my heart, given my background and my passion here, which we'll talk more about, is economics. Um, Recycling infrastructure is well below demand. By World Bank estimates, there's $1.65 trillion of capital investment needed, not just in recycling, but in all
Hmm.
facets of plastic waste management and investment in alternatives. So you think about that, recycling infrastructure is well behind. So recycled material is volatile in terms of its availability and price.
Yeah.
Even in Germany, which is at 50+% recycling of those
Hmm.
materials that they can recycle, They're
Hmm.
closing recycling plants because they can't get enough material to them and it's unaffordable relative to virgin plastic, which is dirt cheap, right?
Right.
And we'll talk about this as a parallel to the energy market in a
Yeah.
moment, but that's
Yeah.
those are some of the factors that are making recycling so poor. And I just want to add one other thing just to make this even more depressing before we get to the bright
Yeah.
side,
Yeah.
which is even if we were to be able to reduce the amount of plastic we produce magically, right? Which nobody has a plan for this. I'm just saying it, just doing math. If we could reduce the million tons of plastic we produce every year, we would still end up with 11 billion tons. If we could reduce it by 40%, let's say in the next
Hmm.
10, 15 years, we would
Right.
still end up with an incremental 11 billion tons to the 9 billion we've accumulated over history, an incremental 11 billion tons of plastic waste that we're mismanaging. So the point is we have to address this problem at every angle,
Hmm.
because it's going to take bit of a cocktail of solutions to get us there.
Right. Yeah. Boy, it's
Yeah.
much more serious than I thought, obviously, and that's one of the goals of your company, I expect, is to raise visibility and awareness of all of this. How does that happen?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I mean, look at the global level, you do see a lot of articles written. You get corporations being shamed for the amount of plastic they're producing and their labels washing up on beaches all over the world.
Hmm.
And you have some activists out there and social media and influencers and whatnot. What really needs to happen, and where we have had the biggest challenge, to be honest, is top-down regulatory frameworks. So everybody's familiar in carbon with the process we've gone through, which again itself has been imperfect around
Hmm.
the COP meetings and the Paris Accords and all of that, right? And annual meetings where I go to these meetings too. That's been going on for 20 plus years, right? 15, 20 years. The plastic equivalent is what's called the Global Plastics Treaty, which started about 5, 6 years ago with the similar intent to set rules for eliminating chemicals of concern, limiting certain types of single-use plastics, and agreeing to a set of global rules amongst 175 countries that everybody can agree to.
Right.
Well, you can imagine how difficult that is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that has not happened. And in fact, it's taken in the current political environment in the last couple of years, it's taken a step back, where there seemed to be an emerging agreement, and then some Western countries like our own started to side with some of the plastic producing countries, and some of the non-participating countries, to block an agreement. And so now they're trying to regain momentum there. But it needs to happen at all levels, government, private industry, and in fairness, a lot of corporations, packaging companies, consumer packaged goods companies, they want to do the right thing. They just want
Sure.
a common set of rules. They want to play by a
Right.
common set of rules globally, and they're not getting that right now.
Well, you need that in order to work on that third element of the problem, and that is the economics, because if there's not a
Exactly.
level playing field, then you don't get results from anyone.
Exactly. And in fact, I actually just wrote a bit of an op-ed that I'm hoping will get picked up because just to give you some context, there's a law that was passed here in California, SB 54, which is about packaging responsibility.
Hmm.
But it not only includes fees for the amount of plastic that you put into the market, it also has a requirement, what's called source reduction, a reduction of 25% of plastic material entering the state by 2032. It is the first
Hmm.
either national or in this case, state level EPR, as they call it, producer responsibility law, that has been passed anywhere in the globe that has explicit requirements for source reduction. Well, what's happened, 17 states in the US have now sued California for doing this because they're saying you're making my state non-competitive by forcing companies or more things more expensive in my state by making companies do this. My retort in my op-ed is you've got it backwards. If you actually embrace this, there's an economic opportunity behind it. funding of recycling infrastructure and employment in those recycling plants for your state, investment in innovation in alternative materials. The
Hmm.
parallel is very clear. Texas produces more wind energy than California. Iowa produces more wind energy than fossil fuel driven energy in their state. That
Hmm.
wasn't because they just had to succumb to something California did. They embraced it. And wind and solar 15 years ago were much more expensive than fossil
Hmm.
fuel based
Right.
energy.
Right.
But it was regulation and venture investing that went into scaling capital intensive solutions like wind and solar that flipped that on its head.
Hmm.
And to me, these states and some of the activists pushing back against this regulation need to think about how to take advantage of it to drive economic investment in the right direction to scale the future, right?
Yeah, it's a very complex dynamic, isn't it? There's so many players involved and so many different points of view. If everyone had the same idea about it, then you could come together a lot easier. But there are, a wide range of points of view on this, I'm sure. And the states that are kind of coming against California are probably thinking about the economic disadvantage instead of thinking about the economic possibilities, as you're saying. So,
Correct.
where's your
Correct.
op-ed going to be published?
We'll see. We'll see. I've submitted it to a couple of papers, and if they don't pick it up, I'll spread it
Yeah,
more
spread it
broadly
yourself.
myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
California's been on the cutting edge of a lot of, sustainability and environmentally responsible kind of policies. And to some extent, I mean, I've seen it hurt California and not just help California. So this is one where, absolutely trying to do the right thing. I think we're all concerned about plastics, and even more so when we learn some facts from an expert like yourself. What should individuals do or individual companies do
Yeah.
to be more responsible? Because I think you're right, everyone wants to be, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the first thought that comes up. And before you know it, you could be using a material because it's cheaper and easier and not really thinking about a trade-off that wouldn't cost you that much more.
Yeah, it's a great question. And ultimately, it's the it takes a village to solve these problems kind
Hmm.
of question,
Yeah,
right? Everybody has to be engaged and
right.
aware and taking action. So it is in those categories, right? First things first is educate yourself. Like understand what you're doing. Understand your plastic footprint as a corporation and as an individual. Just to give
Hmm.
you a sense,
Yeah,
I talked about the Philippines as being the epicenter of the plastic waste crisis, but if
right.
the average Filipino has a plastic footprint of about 18 kilograms a year. The average American has a plastic footprint of about 150 kilograms of plastic a year, right?
Wow.
We do not recognize how much plastic we consume and do away with in our daily lives, in the packages we buy, in the food we buy, in all aspects of our life. And there are ways to take action to minimize that impact.
Hmm.
Refillable cartons, all these
Right,
wonderful things we
right.
could go down the list. So that's point one is educate
Hmm.
yourself.
Right.
Point two is figure out the things you can do yourself in your own life
Hmm.
to improve and lower that plastic footprint. Have fun, do a little calculator. We have a plastic footprint calculator that you can ask us for.
Okay.
Do a calculation for yourself of what is my plastic footprint and what are the big levers I can pull to improve. And then finally, lobby with your friends and neighbors and your government to take responsible action and to force responsible action. And to be clear, I am a capitalist. I grew up as a business consultant and a corporate executive. I
Right.
believe in market-based solutions that provide the right
Sure.
economic incentives and that generate economic returns. I am
Yeah.
not trying to suggest that we need to have solutions that just cause economic pain and
Right.
shrink economies.
Yeah.
I believe those two things are not mutually exclusive, that they
I
can
agree. And those
complement each other.
solutions won't work at the end
Exactly.
of the day. So
Exactly.
it doesn't matter if you want them to work and how hard you push and how much you fight. Things have to make sense financially, and you got to level the playing field for everybody, and then you got to bring everyone's concerns to a place where they can actually make progress as a village, as you say, everybody working together.
Right.
So let me ask you this question. Uh, as individuals, I mean, we buy a lot of stuff that we order online. Now we have no idea how it's packaged, right? I mean, so I guess you could not repeat buy things that you felt were wasteful or had the different types of plastics. Is there some way for, whether you're a purchasing agent at a company or whether you're buying your own stuff, is there any way you can know which of these plastics are the most harmful, the ones that aren't
Yes.
recyclable, or the ones that we just really want to try to avoid because there's no good solution from your point of view?
So there is, and this is part of the education process, right? I mean, first I want to say that in to give again a little glass half full here, you are
Mhm.
seeing significant improvement, particularly in the e-commerce world. Everybody talks about Amazon as the poster child here.
Mhm.
Amazon and others, however, have made some significant strides. You'll see a lot of your packaging comes in paper envelopes and paper boxes with limited plastic tape, for example, and things like that
Mhm.
these days. There is real improvement, but also the amount being sold, the actual volume is growing. So it's kind of
Mhm.
offsetting the improvements with growth, right?
Yeah.
But you can educate yourself. There are resources that we can talk about offline that
Mhm.
can show you which materials are better than others, which are recyclable, which are compostable, which are non-recyclable and they're single use and they go straight to landfill. But in fairness to consumers, it's tough. It's complicated stuff. It's not carbon where a carbon molecule is ubiquitous. It's just carbon, right? And it floats all over the place.
Right.
Plastic has dozens of categories and thousands of types of formations of plastic. Um, One example I always tell is I went to a conference and they had these compostable cups for
Yeah.
water, and they
Yeah.
were very happy that they were doing the right thing, which,
Mhm.
yes, it's better than a single-use plastic cup. The problem is, if you read the fine print, even these cups saying they were compostable, you can't just throw it in with your vegetable bin. It needs to go through a special composting process just for that material, and you need the infrastructure for that material. So we're
Yeah.
still pretty immature in providing the resources and the navigation for consumers that they
Mhm.
need to know how to do the right thing. And that's part of the work that needs to be done
Part
too.
of the work, yeah. Well, it just seems like a bigger problem than I think we focus on daily. And so
Yeah,
good on you that you and your organization are kind of bringing this to the forefront, putting visibility on it, but also, building solutions and helping folks to get engaged in it. So that's fantastic. So this program is about a lot of things. I mean, we could probably talk about your mission here a lot more, but maybe we'll touch on it through a story as well. Tell us a story about something that happened in your career, in your life that you feel is somewhat instructive for us. Set it up, who are the players, what
sure,
happened, and
sure.
let's see if we can tease a few leadership lessons out of that.
Sure. Let's see what we can do here. As you know, as you pointed out in your intro, I got a lot of years to reflect on and draw from. And I spent a long time as a management consultant, and then a good chunk of time as a corporate executive before I decided to take this hard left turn and do something
Mhm.
that I
Mhm.
felt would have some direct impact.
Right.
I think the maybe the one story I would refer to is from my corporate years where I came in to my corporate executive role as an ex-consultant, a career consultant, as they would
Hmm.
call it. And that's usually referred to, with negative connotations. Um, and so I knew that I had to prove that I could drive impact right away, right? Early on. And
Right.
that wasn't just an advisor who was going to write PowerPoint slides and walk away.
Yeah.
So we did that, and I won't get into the details. We were pretty successful in the first 6, 9, 12 months, turning around a digital business, making it grow 30%, having direct impact on the business, changing the way we looked at customer data, all these wonderful things. And in the first 18 to 24 months of my tenure there, things were amazing, like swimmingly. My team and I were really changing the trajectory of how this part of the organization was perceived in terms of the value it was creating and so on. And we saw the opportunity for even more impact, right? By transforming the way the operating model worked in the company, by continuing to enhance with data and to leverage certain infrastructure, et cetera. And my mistake was to believe that data and analysis and, you know, strong arguments were the most important thing in driving change. And that we had proven ourselves and built enough relationships inside the organization to make this change happen. I was wrong. Um, when you come from a world like I did in consulting, where it's project based, it's team oriented, the most junior person's idea can trump the most senior person's belief, and that's what makes it tick. And you go to an environment where people have spent 35 years building their career in one function or one business unit and feel like that is everything to them. You need to do more than just prove things to them with facts. You need to convince them how it's going to impact them positively and their organization and their people positively, and not be disruptive to what I would describe as their power structure.
Mhm.
And my error in bulldozing ahead with what I believed was the right answer for the company, and I still believe was the right answer for the company,
Sure.
ultimately, objectively, without doing even more work and being almost overconfident about the trust and relationships that had been built
Mhm.
to allow that to happen, I think was something I learned some harsh lessons from. Um,
Interesting. So you had early success with it, but then how did it start to slow? How was it
well,
manifesting itself?
I think the early success was based on bringing some test and learn capabilities to the organization.
Okay.
So we piloted things. So we made it easy for other parts of the organization to allow us to test something without disrupting the main sequence of the business. And we proved the impact that it delivered. And that became a culture in my team, which, fail fast and learn was
Yeah,
the
right.
mantra. I had a quarterly town hall with my 500 team members on my organization, and I used to run something called the Breaking Bad Award, which was the team that tried to break something or tried to solve a problem through an innovative approach, maybe failed, but tried, and we would showcase them and give them an award every quarter. So
Yeah.
we were building that culture and we were proving it through that. Where it broke down was while we were adding that value, there were probably two factors. One, the more we wanted to do, the more it started getting close to the bone,
Hmm.
right? Because many of the test and learn things we were doing initially that still created tremendous value weren't necessarily challenging the status quo as much as the things, those were the easier, lower hanging fruit issues,
Right.
right? It was the more structural change that started to make people their hair go up on the back of their neck a little bit.
Hmm.
And then the other is, to be blunt, in that first 2 years, there was so much value creation coming out of the digital side of the business, um, that attention was being drawn away from other core parts of the business
Hmm.
that probably didn't serve us and me so well, in that regard. So bringing the attention back to the core was really critical.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic. There's always a resistance to change, and the resistance to change is often, at the more senior levels in the organization, as you kind of referenced, the power struggle, and at some point, maybe your initiative started to threaten the more senior folks who had, just done things differently, frankly, and maybe the different way didn't look as attractive when your initiatives were bounced up against it, and that was threatening as well.
And it's hard, right?
Yeah,
I
it
had
is.
one not to be named, obviously, board member who
Hmm.
looked at what was being proposed and said, "This is a lot. Could we just do some of it?"
Hmm.
And my answer was, "No, that's the
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
It's transformative, right?"
yeah,
So
exactly.
those are very difficult, programs to pursue. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to put the electric motor in, but keep the gas engine there as well. So
There's your
yeah.
parallel from your career.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta make a move and make it all the way sometimes, and it's difficult. So going back and thinking about that, would you do things differently when you went in? You said you made a mistake, but it didn't sound like the mistake was in the strategy or the execution of the ideas or
No.
getting the organization to innovate faster with your fail fast kind of philosophy and motivating them. Sounds like you had a pretty good strategy there, but it just wasn't meshing with the entire organization the way it
Yeah.
needed to.
I think what my mistake was much later in the game. It was sort of that, 24 to 36 month window when
Mhm.
there was a too much comfort that the momentum had built sufficiently to
Mhm.
keep the train on the tracks, right? And I did not do enough work, and this is genuinely self-reflection, to
Mhm.
deepen those relationships, spend more time with those senior folks that you highlighted to make them feel even more comfortable for what it would mean for them, right?
Yeah.
And that they could envision that future for themselves and their teams and their organizations, right, in the right
Mhm.
way.
And as a leader, I think, we sometimes think about bringing our team along, setting an inspiring vision for them, showing how much we believe in it, showing our own passion, getting our hands dirty and working with them. But sometimes the other more senior folks who have been, the former strategic leaders, we need to engage them as well and let them have a part in the success because without a
Yeah.
part in the success, it really challenges the relevance, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I would even use a very specific example of when you're in a meeting, the fact that everyone acknowledges a point that has
Hmm.
been made
Yeah,
doesn't mean they accept or agree with it,
exactly.
right? That takes a lot more work than
And in
that.
some cultures, it's even more that way. But yes,
Oh yeah,
just about every culture, you've got that dynamic to some
I've lived
extent.
in that one too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, nodding and saying, yeah, I hear you, but not necessarily we're going to execute this. So this
Correct.
might be absolutely no way is it possible we're going to do this. Well,
Yeah.
this particular leadership story you told, which was interesting, when a couple of lessons there that we spoke about. If you just reflect back on PCX, I mean, bringing everybody along for the ride is a great kind of reference point for you as you approach people with all different kinds of points of view in the world about sustainability, about environmental responsibility, about the economics of doing the right thing, about the ignorance they have about plastics and what a person's plastic footprint is in the U.S. or what percentage of plastics are recyclable in the first place, 25 to 30%, or all of these are like key facts. I feel just in a little time that we've been together I've learned a lot. And then we talked about this education process. How do you bring the leaders, the corporate leaders, into this discussion so at least it's a part of their thought process when they're doing their planning and their projections, for the next quarter or for the next year?
Yeah. You need to connect it to what are the critical KPIs for the business? Because at the end of the day, I can talk till I'm blue in the face about what the right thing to do is and
Mhm.
what it's going to mean for the planet and all of that. But when you are running a business, as I have and you have, and
Mhm.
I've been a part of, at the end of the day, every day you're under pressure to deliver the business.
Yeah.
And if something is interesting, that's fine. But if it doesn't positively impact, or, there's the carrot and the stick, right? There's
Hmm.
fear and greed. If it
Right.
doesn't have the ability to damage or enhance your business, and you can't stack it in the list of priorities that is always a mile long, in the right place for you to spend the time and energy to address it, and there isn't a business case with an investment thesis and all of that, it's really hard to engage the most senior executive. So a quick example on this, with this source
Mhm.
reduction law in California,
Right.
a lot of companies are looking at that and saying, I don't know how to do this, and I've got too many other priorities.
Hmm.
My business is shrinking, or my margins are under pressure, and you want me to now substitute cheap plastic for paper or something else.
Hmm.
What you need to do is literally go through the standard business process of saying, let me lay out the business case. What are the penalties and fees going to be for not complying? What is
Hmm.
the capital and OpEx investment required in the operational complexity? What is the consumer perception going to be of what you're doing, right? This is what I
Hmm.
did in consulting for my entire
Sure.
consulting career, is
Yeah.
make the business case. Then you bring the CEO, the CFO, the president, the marketing leader to the table because you're speaking their language at that point.
Hmm.
And there's a sustainability byproduct of it all, sustainable
Right.
byproduct of it
Exactly.
all, right? So that's the way I think about this.
Yeah, and that last aspect of the business case that you referenced is really important. I think there's going to be a public brand benefit to doing the right thing in the right way as well, and I think that has to be considered as a part of this because you know, whether it's someone showing a video of that sea of plastics that's somewhere out in the Pacific, I guess that's still there. I mean,
Yep. The
I
Great
have,
Pacific Garbage Patch. Yep.
yeah, I mean, so whenever you see that, you just go, oh my goodness, this is, you realize just how horribly we are managing some of this waste.
And as my mother jokingly always says, when you look at the lake, and that's just the top of it,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly.
Um,
And it's big, right? It's big.
it's massive. It's
Yeah.
massive. The amount of, I mean, you've seen all the science, how many microplastics are in our brains and every aspect of our
Hmm.
bloodstream and our bodies. We have no
Hmm.
idea what the downstream effects of that are going to be. It's in the fish that we're eating. It's everywhere.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
and it's just because we got out ahead over the tips of our skis on this amazing material. And it's
Yeah.
time to take responsibility for it. So,
I think it's so balanced in the way you honor the fact that it is an amazing material and that there's great applications for it, but at the same time ask the tough questions and what are we going to do about how we manage the back end of this.
yep.
And I think the common perception is that we can do our job to recycle this and reuse. But the one point you made that's really, really troubling is the access to I think you called it PCR, the recyclable stuff that's
Hmm.
that's high quality and lower cost. There's not even a good marketplace for that.
No,
So
no.
are you guys building some sort of a marketplace or
Yep.
a reference on how
Yep.
to find these companies and how to get
Exactly.
materials?
Exactly. That's been the thesis of the entire business is
Yeah.
market-based scalable solutions. So
Mhm.
both in our plastic credit business, if you go to pcxmarkets.com and you go look at our marketplace, you will see 50 projects in 16 countries with the quality, the type of plastic, the
Mhm.
price point per ton. You can see all the audit trails, perfectly transparent.
Mhm.
Everything is about trust and I kind of describe us, I get laughed at for this. I describe us a little bit as the Airbnb of plastic. Like, why is Airbnb successful? Because it's taking a highly fragmented, untrustworthy, experience and
Mhm.
trying to create a scalable, trustworthy, and cost-effective solution that is market driven, right?
Mhm.
And we're
Yeah.
trying to do the same thing with plastic. That's exactly the thesis of what we're trying to do, is make it economically attractive for everybody,
Yeah.
trustworthy and transparent for everybody, and ultimately to meet the mission on diverting plastic waste and not having any end up in our oceans.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as we start to wrap up our conversation today, Sebastian, I'd like to have you rewind maybe 20 years or so, maybe a little more if you'd like. When you were a younger man, what piece of advice would you give yourself? Not necessarily relative to what you're doing at PCX, but just what piece of advice in general about your career and the
Yep.
mission that you're on now?
I was born to two Italian immigrant parents with effectively no college education in our family, nothing. I feel incredibly fortunate for the life that I've had and where I've gotten to. The reflection and the lesson for my younger self
Mm-hmm.
is let it happen. Is the word I always use is serendipity. When
Mm-hmm.
I was running recruiting for BCG and you meet all these type A kids at business schools and they all have a plan. They all know what they're going to be. They all know what they're going to do. They all know how much they're going to be worth. You don't know anything, right? And the more you limit and put blinders on and have predispositions about what you're going to be or who you're going to be,
Mm-hmm.
the less of the world you will experience, the less
Yeah.
opportunity you will be exposed to, and the less you will grow as an individual, and the less happy you will
Right.
be, in my view. So to me, open yourself to serendipity, allow life to happen.
Hmm.
Don't be so sure about what the future holds for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Very good advice. I've been in some recent coaching kind of sessions, and we talked about what the purpose in life is. And many people believe, especially at a young age, that their purpose is to be this CEO of this company by this age. And um, as you grow and you develop and you put a little bit of distance in the rearview mirror, what you realize is that your purpose is bigger than just a job. It's bigger than a career. It's bigger than a profession. Your purpose in life is something that you discover, not something that you acquire. And
Absolutely. Completely resonate with that. And the
yeah.
way I think about it, Wayne, is it's not just that your purpose isn't what you suspect at the beginning. It changes. I mean, if you think about the equation of your priorities and the coefficients on all those variables,
Mhm.
money, title, family,
Yeah,
lifestyle, the coefficients on those variables change as
they
your
do.
life progresses, as they should.
And
And you
sometimes the
need to
variables change
constantly
themselves
reassess.
as well. The variables can
Indeed.
change. Like if you
Indeed.
did a PCA on it, your variable significance would vary as well. So
Yep.
I think that's really, really good input,
Yep.
Sebastian. All right, so
Yep.
let's fast forward now that we know each other. Let's say 20 years from now, we're still visiting with each other and we're thinking about our lives, our careers. All right, we'll probably be most proud of our family. I get that answer a lot. I'm trying to get something
Always.
different. In your
Yeah.
career or your mission or your purpose, what are you going to tell me you're most proud of as you look
Yeah,
back?
I would just like to know. I don't need a plaque. I don't need anybody to remember my name. That's not the point. I actually would like to believe that 20 years from now, the legacy that I have left is that I've helped to influence the direction we've taken on one of which is, by the way, related to other biggest crises on this planet right now,
Mhm.
right? That the plastic waste crisis is related to the carbon and climate crisis is related to the biodiversity crisis, and that the influence, whether PCX is ultimately successful in the way anybody would define success or not, the ideas we're bringing to the table, the solutions we're bringing to the table, somebody else will innovate and take our idea and do it better or do it differently, and that will be the one that scales. That's fine. But as long as I can look back and say, the choice I made to do this, built on the foundation of all the experience and hopefully expertise that I had from my prior career, has
Mhm.
had a positive influence on bending the curve and moving us towards the achievement of that vision and that mission, I couldn't be prouder at that point
Mhm.
of what my career has been. And then I'll just add one other thing
Sure,
is people.
it is.
If there's one thing that I've been most proud of throughout my career, it's some of the people that I've helped to at least nudge in the right direction, build their confidence, have them become fulfill the potential that they have. And that's as much fun as anything in what I have achieved in my career.
I respect both of your answers though, because both of them had to do with people. Most
Yeah.
most folks who work in an industry of business, whether it's entertainment or manufacturing or whatever, it doesn't necessarily have a positive impact on people's lives. Okay, well, if you're in cancer research, you probably have a big impact on people. But certainly in the area of sustainability, to solve one of the biggest problems that we have on the planet right now, that in and of itself is helping people. It's helping everyone. It's helping future generations. And I really believe through the people I've talked with, the people I've coached, my own experiences, that really what matters is how we touch other lives in a positive way. So as you pointed out, the people directly are critically important, and you added that. But the way you're touching other people's lives through the work that you're doing to begin the long strenuous process of getting this problem recognized and solved is really a good people-oriented endeavor, and we really appreciate you being in that role, and that you and your founding partner setting up PCX and doing what you're doing. And it's great for all of us who are listening to this or watching this right now to just learn about it, because I was oblivious until I met you. And I think it's really going to be important to stay in touch with this. If people wanted to reach out and stay in touch, how would they do that, Sebastian?
Really easy. You can go to pcxmarkets.com. There's a contact us link there. If you want to take action, you can sign up for our Plastic Cleanup Hero program. You can even
Hmm.
gift Plastic Cleanup Hero to your family and friends. That also is a way to educate people where you can
Sure.
clean up
Yeah.
their plastic footprint. There's lots of ways. We I do these sorts of podcasts and interviews, press interviews, as much as is humanly possible. Because to
Right.
your earlier question, Wayne, there
Hmm.
is so much education and awareness building needed in this
Yeah.
space. And
Yeah.
again, if I can just contribute to that, please reach out to us anytime. You might hear back directly from me or certainly from one of my
Hmm.
team members.
Hmm.
We're eager to engage with anybody who has a passion that matches ours.
That's fantastic. Well, I expect that others will want to get in touch with you and learn more about this. I certainly do want to stay in touch and learn more about it going forward. And we appreciate you sharing your stories, but also enlightening us a little bit about something that's really important.
It's been a
Thanks.
pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for the time.
All the best and God bless. Well, that's it for Driven to Lead today. We really appreciate you being with us. Share this with a friend or a business colleague if you would. And if I could remind you again, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. We're very grateful for that. So until next time, always remember the high road leads to a better place.